What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catapaglia again, trying to make some money buying fractional real estate online. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Lofty. It's one that I've talked about quite a bit on my channel. Showed you making some investments and where I think some opportunities are. I still think there are a lot of great opportunities on here, but I wanted to just talk about what I think the biggest problem the platform has, and why, whenever I see comments online and talk to some other new users who have been on the site, people that have had a bad experience with the platform, I think really misunderstand one major aspect of it. And so, when I talk about a bad experience, I don't know if you remember my video from probably about a month ago. I went through and looked at every token that was on the market at the time. Um, and did a little math, and it turned out more than 50% of the properties, or right around 50% of the properties that were currently listed, and I think it was about a month ago today, uh, had lost 20% of their value or more, since being put on the platform. And obviously that's a problem. It's a problem if you're coming on here and you're just trying to buy a property, not do a whole lot of research, just look at what the yield is and pull the trigger. But that's not really what this platform is for, right? I mean, that's a huge problem. And I think, if you ask the owners about it, they'll talk about, well, a lot of those are legacy properties and it's not really what we're doing anymore. Um, and it might not really be clear what that is, what they're talking about. So I want to try to break down the sort of general idea that they have for their platform, and some of why some of the properties I think do well, and a lot have done poorly. So in general, they're trying to be a marketplace, right? What makes them different from Landa or Arrived Homes. Lofty's not buying these homes. Lofty's not managing them. They're trying to provide a platform for someone to come and sell a property, and then the idea is the owners together are running that property using a third party manager, but making votes on every major decision. And I think that they state that, but it's not really clear the implications of that. And so I want to show you a couple of things. And they've moved away from that, right? That was all of their quote unquote legacy properties, were sold with that model. The real problem with it is nobody's driving the bus. And I'll show you a couple examples of what that means. And I think that's where most of the losses come into play. I think also some of those properties, people looked at Lofty as a place to just dump a bad property, and if you could get people to buy it, and it was full, but full of tenants who maybe weren't going to pay, it was a way for people to get out. But now they've switched their model to what they call a co-ownership model, where there's one person the person that brings it to the platform has to keep at least 10% going forward. And they're often managing it themselves, or at least it's their role to interact with the manager. But I think it's a much better model. It's really a platform where they're helping those owners raise equity, not sell the property entirely. And I think that they could make that a lot more clear. They have a spot where it's like list the property, and it's like, well, we're not listing the property for sale. We're actually trying to raise some equity, sell a little bit of our equity, not sell the property itself. And I think in that model and some of those properties, they're working a lot better. But let me give you a couple of examples of ones. Oh, that's my staking one. So this is a property. I think I own a couple of tokens of this. Yeah, I think I own 10 or something. Um, it is, one of those quote unquote legacy properties. It was sold onto the platform. There's really nobody that is, um, managing it. And so you think, so one of the assumptions I think a lot of people have is that, well, Lofty's really sort of, guiding the owners, but it's just the owners vote on it. Because they say, oh, you get to vote on all the major decisions. But what you really have to do is come up with the plan yourself as the owner. Somebody who's an owner has to propose those votes. Lofty isn't proposing those votes. And I think that that's something that's sort of lost on people until you start digging into the notes on some of the properties. And so, for example, this property was poorly performing. They wanted to change to a new property manager. Um, some guy, one of the owners, just said, "Hey, I think we should switch to this new manager." He never actually talked to the new manager. He just got it from a referral from another manager who said, "No, we don't manage in that area, but ask this other person." and he just, proposed that vote. Lofty just will send out a vote for anything that a owner proposes a vote for. And so, you've got all these other people that are own it with you, and a lot of them, they're not really doing their due diligence, and so they're saying, okay, well, um, I guess let's do that. Let's make it let's pick a new manager. So they voted, they went to do that. And then you go and look at the, follow-up notes, and Lofty's never been able to get in touch with that new manager. It turned out the other person had never actually spoken to them. They seem to exist, but they're not returning any phone calls. And so now this property is just somewhat in limbo, right? You've got the old manager who's still, they had some work they were doing, and they're going to try to do their, last inspection or something like that. But it is, nobody that has real knowledge of the property and experience in real estate is proposing a solution here. It's just, some random owner that decided, hey, I think we need a new manager. And I called this one guy and he said, use this other person. Let's vote on using that other person. So I think that this is an example of how that can really fail. And obviously, this token is trading at $20 right now. I bought it at $20. It was originally, a $50 token, just like all the others. So people have lost a lot of money on this one. I think at $20, it's hard to get hurt. That's why I bought it at this price. It's part of I've talked about this strategy a lot. I'm buying a lot of these tokens that I think are discounted, and not just that this is a discount from $50, but that when I multiply the $20 times all the outstanding tokens, that I think that let me show you this 2176, which is the number of outstanding tokens, times $20. That implies a total price of this property of $43,000. I did a little research. That seems to be really cheap. I think if you actually sold it, you're not going to get hurt. You're not going to get hurt at that price. I don't think. I mean, obviously you could. I have done some of these where I got really close to losing money when it liquidated. And I've seen some where that happens. And I think actually if you dig down through here, they've been getting offers at like 65,000. So you may be at 45, you don't really have as much room as you think, because after closing costs and fees that are pent up, maybe you do lose money at that price. It's tough to say for sure, right? But it seems like there's a little bit of room, at least as far as I could tell. I think they had negotiated that 165 up a little bit, but it ended up not being sold, and they're trying to just get a new manager. Um, you've got other properties. This is another example. It's another one that I bought. I actually think that this property um, may be on track. It's got a lease through 2025. This lease, I don't really know what's going on with that. So they don't really update these too often when it's just these ones. They say, well, you can ask for an update anytime, but if you ask for it and they don't get anything from the manager, a lot of times they're not going to put something new up here. You can see, okay, we haven't seen anything since August. I actually look at one of the things I like to see is like these operating reserve charts and the transactions, because sometimes these are updated further than the notes. But you can see this one all the way back to August as well. No note there. So um, I actually think this one might be back on track and rented based on looking through. Uh, let's see. Look, having read through all the other notes, and it is one that I own again because I think it's at a really good discount to what it's worth. But obviously, people have been really hurt buying this one when they bought it at 50. And so I've seen, this is actually a specific property I've seen notes about under people's YouTube channels and different comments online and different forums. People have bought these, didn't realize nobody's really running it, that it is like everything has to be proposed and voted on by the owners, and so that model obviously didn't work, and so they're moving away from it. I did want to show you, there's a couple of, so some of those legacy ones, they've tried to fix by hiring new managers, and that's been done by vote. And some of the this is actually one of the managers who's taken over a whole bunch of the older ones. And it seems like he's done, and he's actually very active on the Discord. He's responsive to questions. It seems like on some of these properties he's done very well. I did the video about that duplex that they were trying to convert to an Airbnb and then ran into all kinds of problems. And I probably need to do an update on that because it is it's wild what's going on as far as the proposals from that. So, I still don't think this is a perfect solution because I think his management company is doing a better job on a lot of them than many of them are. And he's bought into, or I don't know if that he's bought into all the properties, but he's at least, given the properties a loan to pay off, back expenses and whatnot. So this is the direction they've gone to sort of help out a lot of the flailing properties. I think only time will tell if this really works out for most of them. Although for a property like this one, he actually posted some pictures in the Discord recently where he went through and this furnace was gone and it had been stolen. There's a whole, it's just in really rough shape. And you wouldn't really know that if you had just looked at these listings and, um, you'd have no idea, no way of knowing that based on just the listing itself and what was going on. And so that I think, uh, now you will. I think if you get in the Discord and you see his discussions, but not everything that they post in there ends up showing up as an update on the listing. And I kind of think that it should when it's somebody, like the property manager giving real info. Those updates I'd like to see come out pretty, more regularly. But I think this is a step in the right direction. Um, this is another one that, I just wanted to show you. It's been sitting here. I actually think it seems like that, they put out a note that says it's rented, that, the tenant, renewed their lease, right? And so this is one that you're getting no yield on, but I think it's related to, capital calls and past expenses and, trying to refill, the reserve. But so then I was like, okay, well, let's look at the operating reserve. And it's just stayed, hovered around this same negative over, through July, but then we haven't seen anything since then, right? But if they renewed their lease, they've been in here, for a significant period of time and really understanding what's going on. You can look at the transactions, but again, you only have them through July on this. And it's because, like I said, I mean, nobody's driving the bus on these. There's no like single point of contact that is interacting with the manager other than Lofty. And they really seem to only do it if they get a request from the owners, right? They're not proactively every single month getting updates on every property, getting new financials on every property. It seems like they're supposed to be. There's this like transactions, but we certainly don't see those in every property on a, like you can see there's just a couple in here. Um, and so I think that's a real problem, right? Now, I say problem, if you're like me, you realize that in every problem there's opportunity, right? Like for me, I bought several shares of this one as well. I think it's operating. It seems to be valued relatively cheap compared to what this property should sell for in real life. From everything I could figure out, I think that this, if the tenant stays in for the next year, I think this rental yield will kick back on, and then all of a sudden, this is a property that people might want to buy again. And so, it is a problem, but I also think it's an opportunity, and it's why I've been able to pick up so many really cheap tokens. Um, but I don't think that's what most people that come to this site and see this and think about real estate ownership. I don't think that's really what they're hoping for, right? And so what the new model is this co-ownership model that I described. I think there's a couple of co-owners that are doing a fantastic job, and I mean this is an example of one. This guy's company is Oralco. He's got this 90 Madison, which I own some tokens for. He's got 88 Madison, which I own some tokens for. He's got a couple. He's got like 724. I don't know, but he's got multiples. Um, he's always in the Discord. I mean, if you have any questions about his properties, he's very responsive. He's always looking at different opportunities as far as like additional spots to monetize the properties, ways to save money. He had a big discussion about whether or not they should get new windows or a new heat pump and how that would affect the NOI going forward based on expenses. Now you can see all that in the Discord. I do think it's sort of a problem that you get that info in there, but none of that discussion, you don't see it on the property itself. So like if I'm new and I'm to the platform and I'm not in the Discord and I'm not, finding that stuff out every day, I might not realize that. But I think this is a model that really works, right? We're a co-owner, and he's someone who clearly has a good idea what he's doing. He's also managing it on Airbnb with good reviews. I think that model makes a ton of sense, but it is not, it's not what most of the properties that are sitting out there really look like today. You do have a few others that are like him. I think he's probably the most active in the Discord, and so that gives you a lot of good info. This is another one that I own, where I think the co-owner does a great job. Let's see, is this the one? Yeah, and he does a good job. This is old, right? But he's actually in the Discord. Like there was the hurricane recently, and the next day he was out there and he sent pictures of the property. Um, and I think that's really what you need to make this work. But you can't just go in here, pick any property that you want, and find those, right? Like you actually have to spend some time, figure out who the co-owner is, spend some time in the Discord, figure out, are they someone who's answering questions? Are they someone who is really just trying to sell the property, right? Like make it sound good, but they're not really doing a great job. I mean, because you got to realize too, a lot of these co-owners still hold a bunch of equity, and they might want to sell more at that $50 token price or higher. Um, so you have to understand what the incentives are in that situation. But in any case, I think that, excuse me, it took me way too long to figure out everything I just shared with you and to really understand, what's going on. And and so, I think that is why they added this feature where you can, uh, provide a review for, where did that go? You can review the property and review uh the managers too. If there's people that are co-owners for multiple properties, you'll start to see, like, this guy is has multiple properties. I don't own some of this one. I thought it was too pricey when it came out, although although it's just gone straight up. But I the other one I own from him is just, doing really well. It's very steady, and I'm happy with it. And so I think that, it becomes a game of not just picking properties, but picking the right co-owners that are going to have an interest that's really aligned with what your goal is, and are going to, be responsive, be open to ideas when you give them, and not to do, make decisions that are just going to cost you money without doing a lot of research. And I want to point this one out again because it was, um, I'm just going to search for it. I did a short video about it. Uh, let's see. There we go. This one is the one. It was converted to a short-term rental. Turns out it didn't really fly under the permitting. What I think is an update that I didn't show in that video is that, he thinks he's got a loophole that makes it so that it can work, and maybe for right now that is going to be the case. But it is, it was all done without. They spent a lot of money on furniture, and I know some of the co-owners in this one right now are pretty unhappy. And it's that same person who's managing several, and I think doing a good job on some of the others. And so, um, you know, it is the first one I think that's a short-term rental relative to all the others. It's a significantly different property, than a lot of the other ones, right? Like I think he's done a great job on the ones like that Garfield property, although that's a new one. But like, ones where he's taking a long-term rental and it's just messed up and you got to fix it up and you got to get a new tenant. Like I think this might really be more in his wheelhouse. I mean, that's just me looking on the outside looking in. It's perfectly possible that this works out well and starts making money again in the long run. Um, but it is, it's something that you have to figure out, like, yeah, does that owner have the same risk profile, or does that co-owner, or does the property manager? Because in this case, it's really, oh, well, yeah, he was the original seller too. So this one, he's a true co-owner of, I think. Yeah, he's going to maintain at least 10%. And so, do they have the same, you know, plan and outlook and risk tolerance as you, right? Because if they're taking a property and trying to do something to it different than what it's doing now, um, are they someone who's going to do a ton of research before doing it, or are they someone who's going to do it and then just kind of hope it works out, and they're just creative and they're a hustler and they're going to make it happen? And that works great for some people. It's certainly not a great fit for the way I look at properties. And so um, I think that's the biggest and I don't think, like I said, I mean, I started off saying I think it's the biggest problem on Lofty. I think the problem is they're not doing a great job of explaining all of what I just said to people, right? If I just found my way to this site and I start looking at properties and I, click in and I read descriptions and I like this, I'm going to buy it. I have to have gone and done a whole bunch of this, gone through a bunch of the learn tabs and really get a better what's going on. And honestly, maybe not fully get it until I spend some time in the Discord talking to people on there. Um, what did I do? I spent a little time on Discord, a little time on the site, and I jumped right in and started buying properties. I think that's what most people are going to do. I don't think they're going to spend 6 hours really like trying to understand all the inner workings first and then do it. And so then what ends up happening is, you have all these people that get to the site, buy a dud. Man, this looks like such a deal. And then it sits there. It's a zombie property. It doesn't do anything for 2 years. Then it sells and you lost money, or maybe you made a little bit, but it just creates this sort of bad taste in your mouth. So if you're new to the platform, hopefully this helps you a little bit. You understand, like, um, not all the properties are created equal. They're not all, and then it's not just the property, it's the co-owner and the manager. And, you can have a case where there's people that own a large number of tokens and are making votes that make no sense as well. Let me give you an example of that one. Let's see. This is the last one, and then I think I'm gonna let where did that go? Okay. I always have to move this to get to my account. There we go. Okay, so this is you can see I've picked up a lot of tokens, or at least tokens in a lot of different properties. But this is one that I've been every time I see a cheap one, buying another one. I love that you can do that, by the way. But this was, it was a short-term rental. It turned out they couldn't do it. They switched it to a medium-term rental. That seemed like it was going okay. But then they voted to sell it, and they picked an agent. They just picked the agent with just the highest price. That which is just not how you pick an agent at all. But it was clearly that's what they did. And they asked him to list it at that high price. Now there's still a guest in it from a midterm stay, so it's not actually even going to be listed yet. Um, but it seems pretty clear, And then somebody proposed a vote that we keep it rented out as we have it listed for sale. And being an agent myself and having sold a lot of short-term rentals and midterm rentals and tenant occupied properties, I know that's the opposite of how you get a quick sale for the best amount of money. If you want to just have a listing on the market for a long time that doesn't sell, that's a great strategy to do that. But it is, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do it. But anybody that owns some tokens can propose a vote on that, and then hopefully you can convince them, if you can get in touch with them, to do something else. And that was my goal when that happened, but we'll see what happens. In any case, I just wanted to share some of that perspective. Like I said, I mean, I think I did make mistakes when I jumped in. I'm trying to help you avoid it. So until next time, I'm just going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.